So Nico hit me up. He said, as a part of my Pate State pledge, we should all take it. He said, I got some new friends listening to the show. Can you go back through some of your biggest lies so the newbies can get some quality education? Now, he's not talking about lies I've told. We all know I've never done that. But there are big lies. I've got several of them written right here. There are lies that people tell about college football. And if you're new, this is Pate State. This is a campus where we try and educate. We don't go as far as to indoctrinate, but we go right up to the line of education, to the point of indoctrination, but we want to indoctrinate you with the truth. So there are big lies that people tell about college football, and here's what you can't fall victim to. You can't fall victim to just because someone says something or a group of people says something over and over and over again that you accept it. And I'm going to give you the first one that we hammer on all the time. And so I'm going to skip through this one pretty quick. You are what your record says you are is a huge lie in college football, and its close personal cousin, a win is a win. I'm going to pause. I know we have a lot of new people watching and listening to the show, and you may have thought to yourself, well, hold on, but a win is a win. But you are what your record says you are. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the middle of the season. This is the time to get the erroneous thinking and logic out of the room. I've had to do it before. There's stuff I used to believe about college football that I don't believe anymore. Some of them are on this list. You're not always what your record says you are. A lot of you love the NFL. You watch the Sunday game. You are what your record says you are in the NFL. A win is a win in the NFL. Not so ironically, a lot of these sayings were born in professional sports, and then a bunch of people who used to solely cover pro sports started to cover college football when college football got bigger, and they took the pro sports ideologies to the college game, and it doesn't always apply, and this is one of them. So, do we want to do a little research here? Do we want to do some field research? Let's just say Pate State is playing Texas and Georgia to start the season. I lose both of the games by a field goal. 30-27, 31-28. I lost both games by a field goal. I am 0-2. I got 2 losses. I'm 0-2. You go play East Texas State and Portland State, and you win both of those games by a field goal. Who is the better team? Who should be ranked higher? Whose performance to date has been more impressive? And you either fit into one of two camps. You either look and say, well, 2-0 is always better than 0-2. You either look and say, well, 2 wins is always better than 2 losses, or you understand the relativity that has to enter the equation when you're talking about college football because of the vast disparity in strength of schedule and even strength of opponent. Because, again, we do this really crazy thing in the college football world where we pretend over 100 teams are playing the same sport. Whereas, in the NFL, it's 32. So it's a lot easier to talk like that than it is in college football. So, no, you're not always what your record says you are. That's a lie. You could be, but not always. And 10-2 is not always equal to every other 10-2 out there. All right, next up, next big lie. I'm glad you asked me about this. Recruiting rankings don't matter. Well, that's a lie. Recruiting rankings very much matter. Now, you will notice that you may have said this before. You certainly have heard other people say this before. Normally, this is not when your team lands a 5-star. Normally, this is not when your team lands a top 5 class. Normally, it's when your rival down the road just landed a 5-star, or your rival down the road landed a top 10, top 5 class, and you're going into defense mode, and you hope, which is okay, you hope that kid is a bust. So it's a little twisted, but it's okay. It's the Wild West of fandom out here. Or you hope that maybe they do like Texas A&M a couple of years ago, where they have this highly rated class, but it all falls apart. Yeah, that could happen. But more than likely, it's not going to happen. So the best recruiting averages the last 4 years: Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, LSU, Oklahoma, Miami, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. What do you notice there? You notice a ton of teams that not just in a given year, but annually are competing for the national championship. You will also be quick to point out probably, but Josh, what about Miami? You're right. That's an exception. Well, Texas A&M hasn't. You're right. That's an exception. Also, you'll notice you had to go a little further down the list. There were no fraudulent teams at the top of the list, were they? And what about Alabama last year, Josh? Yes, Yes, the first team out of the playoff, replacing the greatest head coach of all time. Yes, there's your exception to the rule. So recruiting rankings do matter. Verbal commitments also matter. It's July right now, and so there's been a lot of verbal commits, and you'll also notice anytime there's a verbal commit, someone says, oh, that doesn't mean anything, check back in December. And the insinuation there is like the verbal commit means nothing. No, the verbal commit doesn't mean everything, because it is true that some kids will decommit, but it's also true that the vast majority of them won't. So anyone that tries to discredit the verbal commitment, or they especially try and discredit just the overall rankings industry, they are living on exceptions, not the rule. Next up, I think this one came from the NFL ranks as well. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. That's a lie. Case by case, that's a lie. So as a catch-all belief system, it's a lie. Now, it could be that you're a team that has nothing at the quarterback position, and the reason that there's still a QB battle going on, the reason there's still 2 guys splitting reps 3rd week into fall camp is because neither one of them have taken the job. That could happen. That could happen. Here's what else could happen. You could have Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts on the same team. That could happen. You could have what Ohio State had in 2014, where they end up winning a national title with their 3rd stringer. That could happen. You could have Graham Mertz starting for you, and he goes down and DJ Lagway comes in and saves your season. That could happen. Point being, sometimes there is quarterback competition because you got none, and that's where that age-old adage came from. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you ain't got any. But you could also have 2 guys that would be starting virtually anywhere else, and it just so happens that some head coach out there has convinced both of them to play for him, and they're just battling it out. And usually you know that because usually you're getting feedback from camp, and people are like, I remember I brought Tua up because I remember them saying that about Tua Tagovailoa when he was a true freshman. Jalen Hurts is the entrenched starter at Alabama, and all people could talk about is the backup dude whose name we can't pronounce. There was a guy on a message board that worried whether the language barrier was going to hurt Tua, because he's a Hawaiian. How's he going to speak English, right? That actually happened. Hey, quick time out. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, make sure you do. It's free. It doesn't obligate you or sign you up for anything. It just helps us keep the channel free. All right, back to the show. So that's not always the case. And certainly when someone just says it blanketly, that's a lie. Another lie. This is where it gets a little more controversial because some of you will disagree with me on this, but another lie is the bigger the playoff, the more the opportunity. That's a lie. The bigger the playoff, the more opportunity you have to make the playoffs. That's true. Of course, that's true. But by that logic, we should expand it to 136. Therefore, everybody gets the opportunity to make the playoff. No, when they say there's more opportunity, the bigger the playoff is, they mean there's more opportunities to potentially win a national championship. And I know why people say that, because on the surface, you think to yourself, if we used to only have 4 in, that meant only 4 teams could win the national title. But if we put 12 in, or 14, or 16, that means 12 teams, or 14 teams, or 16 teams have a chance to win a national championship. But they don't. They don't. Mathematically, they all do. Just like when that meteorite landed in South Carolina the other day. Hey, man, someone woke up that morning with a small non-zero chance that that was going to happen in their backyard. Realistically, what were the odds of that happening? So in college football terms, yeah, SMU mathematically could have won the national title last year. Boise State mathematically could have won the national title. It is true that mathematically speaking, there was a non-zero chance of them winning it. In reality, there was no chance of them winning it. The reality is the best shot one of those Cinderellas ever had was the 4-team field. As crazy as that sounds to you, and I'm going to give you evidence. We are, 2 years removed? 3 years removed now from TCU playing for a literal national championship. You realize that? Well, Josh, they didn't win it. Oh, I know. They got splattered against Georgia in the national title game, but they played for a national championship. And do you know why? They played for a national championship because they existed in a year where your Ohio States or your Alabamas or whatnot, they could lose like one game at the end of the year, and if they lose at the wrong time and the field's structured the right way, they're out. They're out of the playoff. I mean, Georgia famously a few years ago is coming off back-to-back titles. They go to their conference title game and lose, and they're out of the playoff. That's the best shot that the Cinderella ever had. That's the biggest opportunity they ever had. Cincinnati made the playoff, but the better way to look at that is Cincinnati made the Final Four in the 4-team model. TCU made it to the national championship game in the 4-team model. The trade-off here is many, many more Cincinnatis and TCUs and teams of that caliber will make the playoff now. None of them will ever go deep in the playoff, go to the national championship game. And the reason is because of what Ohio State did last year. Any former life, Ohio State is out. They lose to Michigan, they're out. But all the playoff does is give second chances or third chances to the teams with the rosters actually capable of making it that deep in the postseason once they have access. And so it's this big trade-off that we did. It's kind of a sleight of hand trick of, hey, you want to expand the playoff? Yeah, so you guys have more opportunity? And enough people said, yeah, let's do it. And then some people still haven't realized this, although as you get deeper and deeper into this area, you will. It comes at the expense of any Cinderella ever having an opportunity to make any kind of run to a championship game. I never cared about that much, but a lot of people do. So that's a lie. And final lie that I wanted to hit tonight. This is not an exhaustive list, by the way. Everything done in the name of money has to be done. That is a lie. You see it all over the place. We just talked about playoff expansion. Why don't you guys expand to the playoff? Well, I mean, think about the millions and billions more dollars that we could make. Well, that doesn't equal you have to do it, but that's not where it stops. Let me talk about something that really hits you close to home. When's the last time that you renewed your season tickets and it was cheaper than it was the year before? When is the last time you renewed that space that you tailgate? Some of you have to pay a fee for that. When's the last time that the price stayed static or got lower? Concessions, ditto. Why does that have to go up? Well, it doesn't have to go up, is the answer. It goes up because in some cases you have irresponsible spending. In other cases, you've got people in the administrative state that have figured out how to make a living off of raising fees anywhere that they possibly can and then pocketing enough of it to justify their existence. And so in college football, or whether it's over on the media ecosystem side of college football, you sit through a 4-minute, 15-second commercial break in between quarters. Well, it doesn't have to be that long. It doesn't have to be, but it's going to be because in the name of money, we have to do that. You go to your stadium and there's signage and branding all over the place. Oh, it doesn't have to look like that, but it's going to look like that. Why? Because there's more money to be made. Sometimes it's necessary. Other times it's not. Other times it's not. Dare I go as far as to use the word, I'm not going to say greed. No. There are no greedy people in this sport. Absolutely not.